Learning what stress is, how we individually experience it, and determining effective strategies to manage stress are part of the personal and professional maturation of all individuals. Because nurses tend to work in stressful environments, stress management skills must be continuously adapted to new situations and strengthened over time. Today, we will discuss various components related to the topic, which includes emotional intelligence, defining stress as well as its sources, and also recognizing the dynamics involved with stress management. Emotional intelligence is a critical leadership competency, and it involves four skills: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So what is emotional intelligence? It has four main parts. Emotionally intelligent individuals are able to recognize their own emotions and those of others. They can also discern different feelings and use that information to guide their behaviors. The ultimate goal is to have the power to manage emotions when adapting to new environments. Now I'll hand it off to Trin. She will be talking about stress.
Okay, so now we're going to transition to a relating topic, which is stress. So understanding stress and what causes stress are important, especially for those who work in a stressful environment like nurses. Stress is personally defined according to one's experience. According to the book, stress is defined as an uncomfortable gap between how we would like our life to be and how it actually is. And because it depends on personal interpretation, stress can be positive or threatening. Stress and distress are used interchangeably in the book. However, the stress is mainly used with a negative connotation. Stress management is the control of emotion, behaviors, and having the flexibility and perseverance in challenging time. Stress management becomes even more important for those who are working in a leadership position. Modern nursing today is a very stressful occupation. Patients are becoming sicker and requiring more critical care every day. As a result, having the skills to effectively manage stress allows better care, lower job dissatisfaction, and decrease in job turnover. And now Olga and Tamara will be talking about job stress.
Nurses experience job stress. The textbook defines job stress as the physical and emotional responses that occur when job requirements do not match the abilities, resources, or needs of the worker. There are two types of job stress: eustress and distress. Eustress presents itself as job-related challenges, and this is positive stress because it motivates nurses to learn new skills, master their jobs, and manage new situations. An example of positive job stress a nurse can experience is when a manager assigns the nurse to a unit project. As the deadline approaches, the nurse experiences stress, but this pushes the nurse to keep working and get the job completed. On the other hand, distress is negative job stress and leads to work fatigue, feelings of inadequacy, or burnout. Job stress comes from many sources. The book categorizes sources of job stress into two groups: external and internal sources. We will talk about external factors first. The first factor is overwhelming role expectations, where nurses are expected to be educationally prepared to work in the clinical setting, implementing an evidence-based practice, as well as being knowledgeable about the administrative aspect of nursing. This is a lot to balance and get done in a 12-hour or 8-hour shift. Nurses and managers alike report frequently having to work overtime and get everything done. The second factor is relationships. The relationship a nurse has affects job stress, either positively or negatively. For example, a nurse that has work pressure and added home pressure of caregiving for parents or a sick child can have job stress and impaired work performance. The third factor is the nurse's job position itself can contribute to job stress, especially in positions where nurses experience workplace violence from patients and there are no policies to protect them, or where technology causes nurses to spend more time behind the screen and less time with patients.
The gender role talks about females composing the majority of the nursing profession, and they also have this traditional role of caring for the children, taking care of the house, which in return increases their level of stress. Also, there is the so-called sandwich generation, which may have children and older parents to take care of, which again can be pretty stressful. Now, talking about internal sources of job stress, this can be referred to as personal stress triggers, which have effects on specific individuals. It can be a specific event such as a death of a loved one, a car accident, losing a job, or an ongoing attitude, such as negative self-talk, pessimistic thinking, self-criticisms. So oftentimes these triggers stem from unrealistic self-beliefs, such as unrealistic expectations, taking things personally, all or nothing thinking, which can be significant ongoing stressors. And an individual's ability to deal with this stress depends on their psychological hardiness or resilience, which encompasses three characteristics such as commitment, control, and challenge. These help people turn things around from potential disaster into an opportunity for growth. Then, when talking about internal sources of stress, it's also important to mention Maslow's theory that unmet physiological needs and poor or unhealthy life choices add to the sources of stress and can potentially create a vicious cycle, such as, for example, a continuous lack of sleep for nurses leads to overusing caffeine, which in return, then again messes up their sleep cycle. So it's a continuous cycle that it's very hard to break. So according to the ANA Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation website, nurses are less healthy than average Americans and are more likely to be overweight, to have increased level of stress and decreased hours of sleep. So they call for improving health in 5 areas such as physical activity, nutrition, rest, quality of life, and safety, which is very important because nurses are the most trusted healthcare profession. So we as future nurses have to be cognizant of these issues and really emphasize self-care so we can stay healthy and empower our patients to be healthy and have a healthy life. Now, Stuart is going to be talking about the dynamics of stress.
In terms of how our bodies handle stress, researchers have found that all of us have a predictable pattern of response that can be broken down into 6 different stages. When faced with stress, we will have a fight or flight response, an emotional reaction, a cognitive or intellectual response, a physical reaction, and then either a change in the stressor or a change in the person. Depending on our reaction, we will either adapt to the stress or we will experience burnout because of it. Here are 4 theories that are applicable to the self-management of stress and have direct applications to our nursing practice. In terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, nurses need to have wages that allow them to meet their most basic needs, such as food and shelter, as well as other needs such as job security and a social environment that recognizes and rewards their performance. In terms of the general adaptation syndrome theory, change, lack of control, and excessive workloads can lead to nurses experiencing psychological and physiological distress. In terms of the Pareto principle, which discusses the 80-20 rule, nurses should recognize that in many cases, 80% of their patient care time will be spent with just 20% of their patients. By recognizing this, nurses can plan their care accordingly and avoid feeling stressed or exhausted by trying to spend equal time with each of their patients. There are many signs that can signal overstress in individuals. There are physical signs, such as frequent illness and changes in sleep patterns, mental signs, such as generalized anxiety and depression, spiritual signs, such as a sense of failure or a disconnection from family and friends, as well as the use of unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as drugs and alcohol. It is important that we be aware of these signs so that we can recognize when either ourselves or our colleagues are feeling overstressed, and we can find a solution to help manage the stress and avoid burnout. This concludes our presentation on managing stress. Thank you all for watching.